that is not actively and aggressively looking into what AI can do for their business, frankly, I think is onto a loser.
They're not cuts. This is we're actually delivering a better service at lower cost.
So actually communication's better, as Richard said, efficiency's better, people feel more part of something, and ultimately that has an intangible benefit across the whole business.
It's that journey on the bus, isn't it? And sometimes people have just got to get off the bus.
Yeah.
To now see the fruition of the plans we made and the results starting to come is very pleasing, yeah.
This episode of All Things Business, the podcast, is brought to you by our digital media partner, DFA Law. DFA Law, providers of expert and dedicated legal advice to businesses and families since 1838. DFA Law, the law firm for life.
Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you again.
For regulars, we'll recognise two familiar faces, but we've got a new face as well. So, Alex, I'm going to start with you. Just introduce yourself, please.
I'm Alex Goldsmith. I'm the CEO of Medigold Health.
James Syrotiuk, CFO of Medigold Health.
And Richard Smith, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Medigold Health.
Excellent. So, Alex and James, you came in and sat with me 7 months ago, just following the acquisition of HML.
Yeah.
And it can only be described really, I think, as a really open and honest episode. You were certainly more honest than what I thought you were going to be, and it was sort of warts and all. So I said that at the end of that episode that I wanted to sort of follow that journey through because I found it really interesting, as did a lot of listeners and viewers that got in touch afterwards. So here we are, and we've brought Richard as well. So this can only be good news.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely. We always bring Richard when things have got better.
So, Alex, I want to start with you. What's it been like this since we sat down 7 months ago?
Well, pleasingly, things have gone very well, I think, is the overall summation. Clearly, there's nuances to that, which we'll cover, I'm sure, in the podcast. But, things are much better. And that's great because, as we said when we met last time, the reason you make changes to your business and take risks and buy other businesses and do acquisitions is that the overall aim is to improve your business. And the challenges we had last year and the year before were some expected, some unexpected, but certainly longer than we thought they'd go on for. So to now see the fruition of the plans we made and the results starting to come is very pleasing, yeah.
And James, from your perspective?
Yeah, a lot's changed. I think, as is always the way with acquisitions, they usually cost more, take longer, and are more complex than you think they're going to be. But actually, a load's happened since we last spoke, all for the positive. Still lots to do, but actually we're in a much better place than we were when we spoke.
And I was going to come on to this a little bit later, but I'm going to throw it in there now. But just like you go through those bumps in the road through the acquisition, and then you start to get through them. And then government go and throw a curveball.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, what's that been like for you working through that as well? Because that was the autumn statement, so that would have been just after we sat down.
Yeah.
Is it just like, we've got another storm to get through? Yeah,
partially. Yeah. I mean, I suppose we're not unique in that respect, are we? I mean, that the government budget affected all businesses in the UK. So, I suppose from our point of view, we are a people-heavy business, and the impact of the budget was more on costs related to employment. But really, it makes you look at everything in the business. You know, I think businesses go on a journey, don't they? At different points, they kind of take a step back and say, you know what, actually we need to rejig things for the next phase of growth, whatever that might look like. And I think we saw that as another hurdle on that journey, but you just react. And unfortunately, that means we have to look at the cost base. We have looked at the cost base, and that's incorporates people, but also you look at wider costs as well. On the flip side, you look at, well, how can we grow to grow our way out of the extra costs as well? So yes, it impacted us substantially, multiple millions of pounds of extra costs we've got to find. But actually, sometimes that can be give you the impetus to really look for other ways of addressing that challenge, I'd say.
And Richard, if I could come to you now, as CEO of the business.
Not yet.
Just trying to give him my job.
sorry. But from your perspective, Richard, is that a case of you when you heard the budget? Is it a case of right? We need to get all the board together and lock ourselves away for a day, and just have a day of discussion on the business and talk about.
Yeah, actually, it's the wider leadership team, and we did that actually here in Northampton. We had everyone together, and we tried to look at it actually as an opportunity. There's an old saying, don't waste a crisis, and it was a several million hit for us, but it forced us to really look at our cost base with the wider team and put in place some action plans, take that more seriously than probably we would have otherwise done, put in place disciplines that we perhaps had lost over the years, or in the when you're acquiring a business, it's hectic. You're very much focused on that, and you sort of sometimes lose a bit of that discipline in business as usual. So we went back to that and really focused on cost, and we've had a lot of people doing that, working with us on that over the last few months, and it's really starting to bear fruit now.
I think it's a good point, isn't it? Because actually, you do as the years go by, you maybe lose some of that discipline that you've talked about. And I think there's two newer people to the business here. Obviously, Alex, has been here for a long time, but just having fresh perspectives sometimes in amongst that can generate a different thought process and really forced us to look at things that maybe the business hadn't thought of looking at before, or maybe hadn't wanted to look at before. Yeah. And actually, you've embraced that.
No, 100%. Really, I mean, I guess when you do acquisitions, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And I've always believed that the most important thing when you buy a business is that you don't immediately cut lots of people, and you don't try and look for the savings as soon as you do it, because you then will inadvertently lose skills, lose things that you don't know what you've bought. So, and also it really affects the morale and the culture in the business. So we've always tried as a business, when we've done numerous acquisitions, to keep as many people as we can from the business we've bought. That's the right thing to have done, I think. But actually you end up, when you've done, which we had, 4 quite big acquisitions since 2017, you end up after the last one with a quite a top heavy business probably. Yeah. And I think that's where taking that fresh look, and you guys coming in and really helping me think slightly differently about how we can structure the business, because we're talking about cuts. I don't want anyone listening to this thinking, well, they're making cuts, therefore what does the service look like? The whole idea, number one priority is good service. Number 2 priority is, can we afford it? And so we're trying to make the business better, and in doing so, we've managed to achieve efficiencies and improvements.
And on that, I want to talk about service levels, because the SLAs, if you like, have improved immensely in a relatively short period of time. And I can imagine some clients think it's a long time, but actually, you've gone from 36 days down to 10. And that's the OHP wait time, and OHAs are reduced from 32 to 6.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Richard will cover. Richard and James have probably can take more credit than I for that reduction, because they've been running the business and making those changes. But from a sort of macro point of view, that was the challenge for customers when we were last talking to you. You can tell customers you're doing all these great things. You can tell them there's lots of good stuff coming. You can tell them you're making the improvements for the greater good. You're trying to, if you remember in the last podcast, we were talking about, it wasn't just about the acquisition for the reasons we hit some difficulty. There was macroeconomic difficulty. There was talent drain. There was all sorts of industry-wide problems, which meant that availability of clinicians was difficult.
And as that got worse,
that's largely stayed the same. But what's improved is our long-term solutions, which are largely driven around the way we structure our operations and our tech, has massively changed our ability to deliver for our customers. So when you give those figures, 32 days down to 6 in terms of waiting times for a nurse appointment, that's fundamental and transformational when it comes to the experience of the customer. And finally, the customers can see that when we were sitting here 7 months ago saying things were going to improve, well, they're now seeing they are improving. The key thing now is to make sure they continue to see that.
And if I may, as I'm not in the industry, is there room for improvement even further with those, or is that
no, potentially? Certainly, the doctors 10 days we can get that down to 6 or 7. If you go much lower than that, it starts to become clients aren't almost ready for the speed with which you can deliver it, because they can't galvanise their people for the appointment. But certainly more tweaks can be made. Yeah,
I mean, there's so many things we've done over the last few months and a year, really, around these operational improvements that it's so difficult to go into. But I think the key part of it, and to this point around, they're not cuts. This is we're actually delivering a better service at lower cost because we're looking at efficiencies. That's efficiencies, not cuts, and that's what we've been really driving at. And so we've been doing a lot of work. Katie Wary, our Chief People Officer, has been working very closely with us in terms of management structures. So we were probably too heavy with management structures, and that's not just cost, that drives inefficiency itself because there's a lack of clarity. We had too many layers into the business. So we've done a lot of work around that, and with now having fewer managers, we can invest more time with them as leaders, help them to improve and develop as well, which again is something we didn't really have the space to invest in over the last couple of years. And so, just working to make sure we're supporting our clinicians to be available, as much as available as they can be, really focusing on that on a daily basis, making sure we're using the time of our clinicians rather than allowing that to waste and losing appointments has been a really big focus. So it's not just about recruitment and retention, which has been important. We're a more attractive place to work. We've got the best tech for our clinicians in the industry, but it's also about being more productive with that time as well.
And it goes across all parts of the business. So you talk about clinicians there, but culturally for us as a business, it's really important that everyone feels part of something. And so, actually wherever you are in the business, communication channels have been tweaked and improved, haven't they? And whether you're at the board now or the operating board, or we've got an ex-com, there's new members that have joined each of those pieces. So actually communication's better, as Richard said, efficiency's better, people feel more part of something, and ultimately that has an intangible benefit across the whole business.
And from your perspective, Alex, because you've bought the talent, if I look at you two gents, because you've obviously been with the business for a couple of years now, under your watch. From your perspective, how difficult was it to, I suppose, bring in these experts, but then also planning for the future? How excited are you in terms of where these guys? I'm looking at you two, but I know that you've got colleagues behind you as well.
It's a really wide team.
Yeah, I know it's a very much a wide team, and you two are the sort of the spokespeople, if you like, for today. But how excited are you for the future in terms of, well, actually the difference that the wider team have made in these difficult times? Actually, now we're working through it. We've got through this now. Now we're on to a really exciting journey over the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, going through change to the degree that we did in 2023 and 2024, and it wasn't, as I said, just about the HML acquisition. It was about market change, employee expectation, post-COVID world. The world has changed a lot, and we're also a scaling business, so we're a growth business. And any growth business, I think I've learned things in the last couple of years. I've been running the business for nearly 20 years, but actually I've probably learned just as much in the last 2 as I did in the previous 18. And one of the big lessons for me was I'm a very loyal CEO. I'm very loyal to my employees, always have been. It's one of my strengths. It can also be, I think you can get very stuck in your ways and quite used to dealing with certain situations in the same way, or relying on the same management structure or the same people. And I've learned that actually change is just as good as sort of staying the same or being consistent if done well. And you can't scale and grow to the next level without constantly improving. And that sometimes means management and people and structures. So yeah, you've mentioned James and Richard, and they've been brilliant additions in the last 18 months to the senior leadership team. We've also got 5 or 6 other people in that group that have also come in new. And that means we've lost 3 or 4 people that maybe I've got that helped me get the business to where it was in 2023. And they will always be part of the Medigold family in the journey. But if you want to get to new heights, more customers, better services, improved technology, and really make yourself, our mission is to be right at the forefront of anybody that wants to look after their people. They should be thinking of Medigold. And if we want to be that for anyone in the UK, got to continually evolve and change.
I can't remember the book now, but some people, it's that journey on the bus, isn't it? And sometimes people have just got to get off the bus at the next bus stop, but then
sometimes
other people
they've got to get on a different seat on the bus, and that's very much it. Like, and Medigold's always been about getting the good people on the bus and keeping them, and sometimes that means changing seats, as I said, and some of this change has been that. So we've kept, and the other thing is, you don't come through a challenging couple of years like we've been through, because I want to be very clear, there's still many people who are still here, who have been here for many years, who got us through that period. The resilience shown by everyone in the business to get through those times and then come out stronger is remarkable. And I'm very proud of the people in Medigold. It's always been a sort of a thread that runs through the business, as sort of inner steel, and that's continued. And all we're doing is building on that.
One of the services that you offer that perhaps is over this last year has sort of gone under the radar a little bit is the Neurodiversity service. Now, you're better briefed than what I am on this, but I believe that from the report that I was reading over the weekend that it's reported that 1 in 7 people in the UK workforce are neurodiverse on some level, but a large percentage of those it's been undiagnosed, if you like. Yeah. Tell me about that service and where you think that can benefit existing customers, but also new customers going forward.
I think neurodiversity and effectively it's been referred to as a superpower or an untapped resource of superpower in businesses. I think in the past, being neurodiverse has often meant a lack of understanding by management in your employment has meant that sometimes you can miss out on opportunity and be marginalised and sometimes be judged in the wrong way for not being able to do certain things in the same sort of typically normal way, in inverted commas. On a podcast it's difficult, but inverted commas normal, but you know, and that was wrong, and I think in history that's been now proven to be wrong, and not just wrong because it's borderline discriminatory to treat people differently because they may be neurodiverse, but also because that you're missing out on a lot of amazing things that they could be doing for the business and in a way that other people can't. So neurodiversity is probably one of our fastest growing areas of specialty businesses all around the country. Obviously, we look after 4.7 million people in 3,500 businesses and organisations. So within that, there'll be near on 1 million people or potentially near on 1 million people with some form of neurodiverse condition, and
the majority of those they'll be
well, they may not know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it starts with awareness. So we're doing loads of work on training and awareness and how to spot symptoms or signs of someone being neurodiverse. And people are obviously, there's many different types of neurodiversity. That's the other thing, is if you'd have asked someone 10 years ago, what does neurodiversity look like? People have just said it's dyslexia, whereas actually now, there's many, many different types of neurodiversity, so we're trying to bring awareness to all of those things. So once you've got the awareness and you've got managers in organisations looking for neurodiversity, then you can start to really get the best out of those people and provide a work environment that they find most thriving, which is a win-win for everyone, isn't it?
I'd say a little bit, it's a good case study for us about kind of the maturity and the development of Medigold as well. So it's a service line that we sort of supercharged when we acquired HML.
Yep.
But with everything else going on, we weren't able to pay it a lot of attention from a leadership team perspective. It's run and still run by a great guy, Richard Southorn, continues to run it really well. But now we're able to bring the support of the Medigold group to turbocharge it further.
Yeah.
Because we really want to expand that area. We want to grow in that area. We're really strong. It's a great service with great people in it. But we do need to invest in it. We need better systems. We want to attract more staff into that area. So it's one that we're giving focus to. Richard is a great guy, very excited to keep growing that business.
It's a good example for me of the broadening spread of occupational health as well. Because actually occupational health it's kind of a legacy term in a way. And actually it's a term that's more of an umbrella term for lots and lots of different services. And that's one of the, it's not new, it's been around for a while, but actually that's one of the more faster growing pieces of that sort of offering at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the opportunity for us as a business as well, is actually where next, what else can we throw into the service offering?
From a small business perspective, the way that my mind worked when I heard about it was the untapped potential. Because I've worked with 28 very creative people, and I'm very fortunate, but I don't know how many of them are actually neurodiverse. I've got an idea, and I probably would be as well if I was to go through that process.
We're trying to get all of our customers to think exactly in those terms, putting the right people in the right roles with the right support, and neurodiversity and everything surrounding it is part of that, as James says. There's many other things. And I think that's really where the sort of overall, just to link this together with where, what we're here to say, that's really why we're so excited. You go through 2 years of effectively firefighting. It's very stressful. There's a lot of resilience needed. You don't have the ability to do some of the really proactive things you want to do to push new services, because you're literally just trying to get the existing services produced in a better way, reduce delays, improve customer experience. If we'd have gone last year into some of our major customers and said, would you like to hear us talk about neurodiversity? They'd have said, that'd be great, thanks, but how about getting my medical appointment on time because you're waiting 6 weeks? I understand that entirely, and you don't blame those people for that. But now we've got everything stable, and we're operating like clockwork. SLA's back on track, KPI's back on track, everything working at green. All I'm seeing is green across the board in terms of delivery. Long may that continue, and we're focused on it. But now all of our experts can go into their customers and say, what about neurodiversity awareness? What about some further mental health support? How about looking at your alcohol and drug policy? Are you supporting your employees in the best way you possibly can? So we can have those proactive conversations, which we couldn't do a year ago.
Yeah, but one of the things I was going to say on that is we want our customers to feel that everything's going well. And so you're absolutely right, everything looks green. But actually, it's always the case, isn't it, where 99% of things could be going well.
Yeah, that's true.
But 1% of things actually are exponentially more important, and that leaves a sour taste. So, we're definitely aware, I think, that across the customer base, there's some people that might listen to this and might say, well, actually, that's not my experience. And clearly we look to address that, but on the whole, things are massively improved. And it's for us now, it's about finding those kind of 1% where people still aren't happy or something's fallen through the cracks and addressing that so that everyone's happy.
And in this, I mean, I know we've spoken about the leadership, the team that you've got, and the other half a dozen, 7 or 8 people that support you three in delivering it and leading the business. But we also have got to remember, you're a large employer. You employ 1,000 people?
Yeah, about 900 people, yeah.
About 900 people. I mean, Rich, if I can come to you, what's it been like sort of culturally, internally, if you like? Because obviously you've the team, I'm guessing some members of the team or some departments, the ones that are picking up the emails or the calls from clients from a few months ago, that's probably, culturally that probably wasn't that great, but it's turned around now and it's a lot more positive. What's that been like from your perspective?
Yeah, so we have customer service across the business in different service lines, but our biggest service line has our big customer service department in it. And through the acquisition, initially with the acquisition, we weren't able to support them well enough in providing service to clients, and that's demoralizing for them as individuals. It's very frustrating. They're going to have angry customers on the phones, angry emails, lack of clarity around process. What makes you happy at work? You need to be enabled to do your job well. Most people come to work and want to do their job well, and I think through just a lack of clarity as we were bringing two large organisations together. So we had a lot of attrition in some of those roles, and a lot of unhappiness. A lot of people working remotely, so probably feeling a bit isolated as well. One of the big things we've done, which has had a major impact, is to restructure that department. So it was 140 people this time last year in 20 or plus teams, all doing things in a very different way. Lack of control, no KPIs, no data for the managers to work on. Probably too many managers, not all of them skilled as managers, probably over promoted, to be honest. And so we looked really hard at that organisation, and with a couple of really strong young leaders from HML have been able to transform that department. So we've streamlined those processes, simplified things, become much more data focused to help manage it, provided clarity for those colleagues, set expectations, but support in the delivery of those expectations. But still on a journey, as James was saying. So whilst we're now pretty good, actually, we're really good at sort of churning the handle where it's straightforward cases. What we're still letting ourselves down with a little bit is on exceptional cases where things have gone a bit wrong, maybe where customers have to make a number of touch points. We sometimes let ourselves down with the ownership of those cases, and that's our real focus now. So kind of quality, bring the quality of customer service. One of the things we did was bring some people back to the office, which wasn't popular at the time. So we now have our office in Sheffield is where our key customer service, customer touch point people are. The managers are in there with them. They can work with them on a daily basis, support them, help them with those conversations, support the communication and make it better. So whilst that was a very difficult and stressful period, that's now bedding in really well.
Have you seen you've obviously seen the benefits of that, yeah?
Yeah, we have. In particular, I think there's certain roles where that really helps, and that is absolutely one of them.
Yeah, and culture as well. I'm probably going to go toe to toe with you on this, Alex, but I can't see how you can build a team unless you're together. I mean, we've got this hybrid one here, Wednesdays and Fridays. If anybody wants to work from home, they can do. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, everyone's in the office. And for me, we still get 5 or 6 people that come in on Wednesday or Friday, sure. But it's a real good way of building that team. And a lot of your team obviously were working from home.
I think we've gone round and round and round on this. I am, as a leader, you have to, as you know, Ben, you have to try and take into account everybody's opinions and views, because you're never going to keep all the people happy all of the time. I think where we've ended up is flexible working is definitely what people want to some degree or other. I think we've definitely seen that some departments, through the best of intentions, just work better on site and in an office most of the time. Where we have roles where that's not needed, we still try and offer as much flexibility as possible. And even for the roles where it is needed, within reason, we'll allow people some flexibility to work from home as they need to, without losing that team ethic and that team ethos. So I guess we're probably a hybrid. We are now very much a hybrid business. I don't think any business going forward can be anything other than hybrid. I think people that say you must all come to the office, I'm not all for.
If I could come in there, do you look at your competitors?
Yeah.
Now I know you're market leader, okay, but do you look at competitors with one eye almost on recruiting new talent in the years to come, to almost sort of see, well, what are our type of future employees? What are they currently getting? And does that impact your decision at a board level on that? Or is it a case of, no, we're just doing it the Medigold way?
No, I mean, I would say our focus is we want to grow our people. We obviously have sort of a natural level of turnover, but we strongly believe we've got a very talented cohort of people at all levels in the business. What we want to do, and again, it's something probably we're sort of going back to and being better at again, is recognise that, focus on development, be kind of explicit around expectations, as I said. Our process now around recognition and reward, all needs to be better. We will always keep an eye, and Katie will focus on what's going on in the market. We'll spotting talent. But we are a growing business. Yeah. We are going to need more talent. But for us, I think it's a family firm. Right?
But also it is to allude to your point on competition. It is a very complex and quite competitive market we're in. So there is a big competition for the clinical talent in our industry. So making sure that we're building a place that people want to be at is really important. So that where Richard mentioned earlier the tech we're using for our clinicians, how we've managed to transform the SLAs for our customers by using better tech to get better utilization from our clinicians. But that tech has also enabled our clinicians to have a much better experience at work. So therefore that helps us retain the ones we've got, but also attract ones we don't. Okay. We've also, you do look at rivals in the industry for best practice, because anyone that doesn't do that and has success, would be lying.
You'd be remiss if you didn't. Really.
You'd be remiss if you didn't.
Yeah.
And you've got to always check that you are not missing a trick. But I think actually, historically, Medigold's always been a pioneer in what we do. It's been looked at as a beacon of sort of, we lead the way normally. We've certainly led the way on some of this AI stuff we're doing.
Yeah, and you I'm right, I think you led the way when you went sort of remote as well, didn't you?
Yeah, we managed to go completely remote quicker than most of our competition.
Yeah, I remember that at the time.
During COVID, yeah.
Hence why you're now my landlord.
Yeah, hence why we're sitting in my old office doing this podcast.
Alex, you mentioned AI, and James touched on the investment in technology that you're making. Tell me more about that.
Well, look, I mean, it's all linked to. We mentioned the challenges we had around clinicians and utilisation, and actually that there's currently a shrinking number of occupational health clinicians. For instance, 3 years ago there was I think 1,500 registered occupational health physicians in the country. There's now only 1,200. So that's obviously an unusual sort of direction of travel when it comes to talent, with an industry that in the same period of time has seen a huge growth in demand. So that's a problem. So how do you solve that? Well, obviously you train more clinicians, and I think that will happen eventually with government intervention, and medical school training policies will change and occupational health will become more mainstream. But in the meantime, technology has to play a role in how those clinicians interact. So we've embraced and taken the brave decision to embrace, because there's still a lot of people in our industry shying away from introducing AI into the way our work is produced. We've been working on it for 4 years, well before ChatGPT was a glint in the milkman's eye. We've been doing it for a long time before that, and we're lucky to have a doctor who's also incredibly interested in computer programming and in AI usage within that. And he also understands occupational health. So we've been working with him for 4 years to build a system that will work for our clinicians to effectively give them better information, easier ways of producing reports, and also and give them more time in the day, both to see more people, but also to take downtime and use their own sort of time for not getting too burnt out and having a bit of R&R effectively.
So it's more efficient for the clinician as an individual, but also for the client.
Yeah, so it's a win-win. And I think Medigold has embraced that, which other businesses are still definitely on the fence on in a way. And we're also looking at other ethically acceptable ways that we can use AI to enhance what we do and to complement what we do rather than replace what we do. And, I think any business, whatever sector you're in, that is just saying, that is not actively and aggressively looking into what AI can do for their business, frankly, I think is onto a loser. You've got to look at it, and what you can't do though is go willy-nilly, everything's open, whatever, go for every type of possible type of AI you could use, because then you lose control. But I think if you do it, and we've got an AI policy, we've got an AI committee that meets, we've got governance around it, we've got we don't launch anything either usage of or strategize to use of without discussing at committee level. It's got various levels of approvals, but we do that once a month. It's discussed regularly, and if it can enhance the business and enhance the customer experience and enhance the experience of our people delivering the product, we'll do it if we can do it ethically and without too much disruption.
I'm going to come to each of you now to share a lesson, because people watching this will have aspirations of acquiring other businesses in the future. Might even be at the start of that negotiation now, and it might be the first one. Okay, so what lesson? I'm going to ask you these 2 questions. Okay, what lesson would you like to share that you might change? I don't want to use the word regret, but you might do differently if you could go back through that time again. And also, is there a significant memory? Is there something that where you go, actually, it was the day that I don't know, Alex, the dashboards all went green for the first day. Yeah. Like, is that? Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot there, but Richard, I'm going to start with you if I may.
Oh, that is a tough one. Lesson. I don't think it was a new lesson to me, but it's always good to be reminded. Is you just need the right people around you. Mm-hmm. It's you have to be able to inspire people to kind of get through the tough times and be resilient yourself, and understand that there's a lot of people often really sort of suffering through some of these processes. So I think it's making sure you get the right people is my lesson. Yeah. to constantly be reminded of that. Memory, that is, funnily enough, they're probably the strongest memories in the darkest times, when we're you're having daily stand-ups on and just our backlogs going out, and our customer service answering the phone sort of thing is always kind of the those are tough times, and sometimes you wonder whether you're really going to get through it. I think that's probably I'm going to have a think if I can think of a sort of wowzer moment.
Yeah, go on, and James.
I think So lesson. I mean, I joined halfway through the last couple of year periods since buying HML. So bought the business in March 23. I joined April 24. So midway through that, one of the it's not really a lesson. It's a kind of quote that I've reiterated to the guys around me and the team a few times. But cash is king, and when you're in the thick of it, you've got to focus on cash, and that enables you to make better decisions. Keep your stakeholders up to date as well. Actually, communication is a massive piece when you're going through some challenging times. Having clarity, having confidence, not over-promising and under-delivering, the opposite way around, under-promise and over-deliver. Yeah. But for me, you might expect me to say this being in finance, but it all comes down to cash. You can look ahead and think you're doing okay, but actually get under the hood, cash might not be in the right place. So I think that's a big lesson for the business as well. Biggest memory, probably calling Alex when he was on his holiday, late April, early May 24. Yeah, so say, look, actually, we need to take some decisions here. So it was quite a difficult conversation, wasn't it? But that stands out as actually a turning point at the same time.
So we both had bad memories.
Yes, that's great. Don't worry, I'm gonna fix that. So you're okay. in classic Alex style, I'm gonna give a more rosy picture. So excellent. My takeaway from all of this, pleasingly now I can say this, is anyone starting in business or in scaling a business or growing a business, if you've got a plan and it makes sense and you've thought about it a lot and you've strategized it out and you go into doing it, and as Mike Tyson once famously said, it's great to have a plan until you get punched in the face. If you at any point start thinking, oh, maybe I should just turn around and go the other way because this is very difficult, that would be a bad shout, in my opinion. We kept going. It got a lot harder than we thought. We showed a lot of resilience. At one point, our customers were angry, our people were angry, our shareholders were angry, our bank was angry, my wife was angry, everyone was angry, mainly at me. And in my head, I'd go for a quiet walk and go, but this was done for a good reason. We've got good plans, we've got good people, we know what we're doing. If the first sign of trouble comes over the hill towards you, you run the other way. Maybe you need to take a little deviation around the problem, but you don't run the other way. You keep going. So that's my advice, or my takeaway for anyone doing this is keep going. You had a plan; it was a good one. Keep doing it.
I think just stepping in at points like that as well, you just got to take a step back and think, let's just do the basics well. Because actually, you can easily lose focus on some of those basics.
But you sometimes you're too close in the business, aren't you?
You
don't see the wood for the trees.
Because I'm not saying that you keep going with your head through the wall. Like obviously, you have to sort of blood goes to the heart. Absolutely, in times of really extreme problems, just get this one foot in front of the other, do the basics well for sure. But the overall plan will probably be a good one. It's just you have to change things along the way, and you have to do the odd deviation, and you have to pivot. Keep working the problem, and the other thing, sort of just leading on from that is, I think once you've got there, and this is what we're really focused on now, and this hopefully will give reassurance to my customer base, who by the way are my clients. I want to thank them because most of them, and the vast majority, have stayed loyal and are still our clients despite having a year of pretty awful service for a while, and they're still here, and they've showed almost as much resilience as my people have getting us here. And one of the things I've learned is now we've got through this, we can't go back to, we've got to keep going, we've got to keep giving, and whatever things we do in the future, we've got to make sure that it can't come at the expense of basic service delivery. That's got to stay. So it's almost like now we need to build a business that's so resilient that it can't fall into any operational challenges. My eureka moment, or my moment of that stands out, is going to be, and it's kind of a funny story, which is we had this enormous backlog, which really was a problem for us. Even though, and one of the weird sort of nuances of a backlog is it's almost guaranteed income, because if you've got people queuing at the door wanting work, you kind of know where your work's coming from. They're all angry because they're having to wait ages, and that's not a good thing. And so we were trying to get it down. But one of the only good things about a backlog is you kind of know that you've got revenue coming. We managed to get rid of the backlog, dry irony of it, having battled through a year or 2 years of not people not being able to get an appointment. We finally gave them an appointment and then had no work, which you just couldn't make up.
But like my old man used to say, in situations like that, you either laugh or you cry.
Correct. And that's the thing. And you know what? And fair enough. But I'm glad we got through it. And I'm glad the customers aren't waiting.
No, I've known Alex for a number of years. Somebody I've looked up to and I find very inspiring. You two,
these two are the same. They also find me inspiring.
There's a whole other podcast on that.
But you two have got very impressive resumes. Would the word proud be right in terms of you look at your careers, and albeit it's only been the last couple of years with Medigold, but do you think now that you've sort of been in the trenches and now we're seeing you come up and there's sun on the horizon, etc., or you're now in the sun? Would you look at that as a proud sort of career achievement?
See, I see that as a mischaracterization. It's sort of speckledy sunshine.
Yeah, we're getting there.
And we've got a load of work to do.
Yeah.
So I'll feel proud in about a year of trading like we are doing now.
Yeah.
So there's still loads to do. And I don't want to...
No.
It's a good question. Yes, I think we've come through a lot in the last couple of years. I am proud of what I've achieved, but really what the organisation has achieved. But James and I are like-minded in this. We want to see it sustained. We want to keep getting better.
I think we have achieved a lot. I mean, I completely agree. I think there's a huge amount to do, but a lot has changed in the last year, and there is an element of, I said earlier on, we want all our employees to feel part of something, and actually for me, the proudness comes from being one of those people that's part of something. And I think actually with the team we've got around us now and the whole employee base, that's much more achievable, which is good.
So on that, right, I mean, 900 employees, and forgive my naivety on this, but is that a case of with your line managers that, because you're not all on one site, you're nationally based. I mean, is there an intention to get together, for example, either as departments once a year, or
no, definitely? Well, that's part of our plan. So one of the things that we talk about changes. We talk a lot about. It's hard in these podcasts to get the balance right. We talk about numbers, cash, all the sort of harder things that you talk about in terms of running a business. What that really all equates to is we were 2 people heavy. We couldn't give, therefore, any of the people we had the right amount of focus, reward, time, management time, training, learning and development, etc. So now, having slimmed the business down to it, and we're in that process now. We're sort of 2/3 of the way through this program of change that we've been in this year. It'll probably be over by October, November time. But when we've got there, it'd be crazy to have done all those things and then not really focus on the good things that we can give to our people. Because if our people are happy and trained and engaged and motivated, then they'll do a great job for the customers. That will then minimise the risk of returning to the bad old days that I said we just don't want to do. And then finally, just to add to that, I think where we've come from, a year and a half ago, we just didn't have. We were firefighting, as I said. We didn't have the data. 2 businesses mushed together, loads of different processes, people, very little clarity. And if you want to ensure a business doesn't fall over or doesn't get to operational difficulty, in 2025, you've pretty much got to predict the future. You've got to be able as a business to go, well, we know what's going to happen in 2 months' time. We know the demand we're going to have. We know the supply we're going to be able to match it with. We know the processes they're going to go through, and we know the tech that's going to glue all that together. We didn't have that a year ago. So we've almost gone from firefighting to forecasting. So to give reassurance to anyone listening, but either works at Medigold or is a customer of Medigold, that's the difference. So look, we're not perfect and we'll still make errors. And as Richard says, it's dappled sunlight with lots to do. But we can do it with knowledge and data and information that we didn't have a year ago. And so, and with that will come hopefully the ability to then drive those the financial figures that James talks about, to then enable us to properly incentivize teams to be better on reward and benefits, to get teams together in person and spend, because that costs money, obviously. To do a group wide event for us is vastly expensive, but it's definitely something we want to look at in the next 18 months once we've got out of this sort of hole we've been in. Okay.
Gents, another fascinating, insightful, honest episode, which I'm really grateful for. And I definitely think there should be part 3. So we'll perhaps do that when Richard says that, he's got the suntan lotion out and he's in a basket of the sun.
We'll do that. Definitely, sounds good.
Very good. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Cheers.